our interest in and fascination towards democracy often pushes us to think that democracy can address all social, economic and political issues. Hello students, yes, we are discussing about democracy. We are discussing about a better form of government, better as compared to any other form of government. We started with a great introduction of democracy by telling you that more than 2/3 countries of the world today have democracy, and those who do not have, they have democratic institutions. For example, China is a communist country, but even then they have regular elections, they have political parties, they have a formal constitution. What is this? This is itself democracy. So that is why we expect a lot from democracy. We expect and we are fascinated towards it that democracy will address all the issues, all the problems that are faced by the people. Democracy is accountable, it is responsive, and it is a legitimate government. Three things that we can expect from a democracy. In fact, everyone can expect from democracy, because we discussed that people have different voices, people have different choices, they have different experiences, they have different situations, so they have different expectations from democracy. But three certain things can be reasonably accepted by the democracy. They are reasonably for the people that they can expect from a good democracy. That is accountability. All the people, they believe in democracy, that democracy will provide them free and fair election, the government will be free of corruption, and people's voice will be heard, people's representatives will work in their favor, in the welfare of the people, etc., etc. So when democracy generates its own support by doing good things, generating its own support is a testimony of democracy itself. It is a testimony of democracy. Before we go through responsiveness and legitimacy, let us discuss one more issue that is a very critical one between the people or among the social groups, that is, democratic government is not always effective and it is most of the time inefficient government. Do you know that Hitler used to say that democracy is a government of fools? When Nazi party was formed by Hitler in Germany before the Second World War and after the First World War, he used to ridicule on democracy. Many people who live in dictatorships or non-democratic countries, they blame democracy for being ineffective and not efficient. It delays in decision making. Yes, there is delay in decision making in a democracy. While if we compare democracy with dictatorships or with any other non-democratic form of government, we can experience that in the non-democratic countries there are quick decisions, these governments are efficient. As I gave you the example of dictatorship, Hitler, they take timely decisions and they make policies very quickly, whereas we blame democracy that it is ineffective and inefficient. Yes, democracy takes time, democracy delays in decision making. Sometimes the importance of an issue is over and then the decision is taken by democracy, because democracy is based on procedures, processes. Democracy and democratic leaders, they have to bother about public opinion. They have to bother about the constitutional arrangements. They cannot make policies on their own. Like in non-democratic countries, the rulers, because they don't have to bother about public opinion, because they don't have to bother about any other procedure or process. But democracy bothers. They have to bother about process and procedure, because they have to run the government at least for 5 years, because they have to muster support of the people. So a delay is bound to take place. For example, you have read in your class 9th that while discussing a bill in the parliament, ordinary bill and money bill, there are so many readings, then there is committee stage, and finally president signature. So lot of time is taken because process and procedure is followed. While in non-democratic countries, this procedure and process is not followed. And moreover, they are not bothered about elections. They are not bothered about public opinion. Whereas in democracy, our rulers are concerned about people's opinion. They bother about election because they have to win support of the people. So, a delay is bound to take place. So, on one hand, we are blaming democracy for inefficiency and ineffectiveness. But on the other hand, again we are supporting democracy. After all, democracy, the policies that it makes are more acceptable by the people, whereas the non-democratic governments, maybe they take quick decision, maybe they are very efficient, but their decisions and their policies most of the time are not acceptable by the people, and most of the time they are not in favor of the welfare of the people also. In democracy, although it delays, although it shows inefficiency and ineffectiveness, but once a decision is taken, once a policy is formed in a democracy, it is more acceptable by the people, and most of the time it is in our favor, it is in the welfare of the public. So, what do we say? The last line of the answer will be that the time and the cost that democracy takes in decision making is worth it. Means democracy deserves the delay, the cost, the time that it takes, because the policies and the laws that are made by taking time, lot of time, again and again meetings, it brings very good results, and it is always very, very positive. So, in this regard also we will support democracy. This is your topic of 3 marks as well as 5 marks. If it comes in 3 marks, give it in short, the democracy is inefficient and ineffective. Give example of Hitler, give example of dictatorships, and finally the last point will be that even then we support democracy because the time and the cost that it takes is worth it. So, this is what we will do in this chapter. We will criticize something, then we will compare it with the other countries, and then finally we will make our view. Finally, we will establish the view that finally democracy is a better form of government. As far as the other points are concerned, democratic government is always responsive towards the needs and demands of the people. A good government, a good democratic government, it always feel and they know that what are the basic necessities of life. They know what people want. People want that in most of the decision making, people should be involved in it. And people have very small aspirations that if their life goes on smooth, that will be a good democracy. You know, once there was a democratic philosopher who said that democracy is better or not better. It depends on how people feel while living in a democracy. Very important line. What is the feeling of the people? What people feel who are experiencing the democratic rule, who are under the democratic rulers, what they feel. And if they are feeling good, if they are feeling satisfactorily better, then democracy is better. Democracy always share its information with the people, but in many references, people criticize government that they do not share all the information with the citizens. In fact, in non-democratic countries, government do not share any of the information with the people. In a democracy, if democratic government fails to share information with the people, that will also be in our favor only, because there are certain matters with the government which are not to be shared with the public. Similarly, the democratic government is whether they are following the procedure or norms on which the democratic government is based, whether when they are making policies, when they are forming policies, whether they are following the procedure and norms and the processes. A person who want to know about it. It is a legitimate government. They can know through the various ways. They are authorized to see the working in the government offices. They are authorized to question the government, to have a legitimacy on the government, that whether the government is following constitutional ways or not. So this is really undoubtedly a plus point of democracy, and this is really the point that makes democracy a better form of government than any other form of government. Accountability, responsiveness and legitimacy, these three outcomes cannot be ignored, and if not achieved, then people can have a fair expectation from a democracy. Correct? Then comes about the economic growth and development. In this regard, or on this ground also, we have seen that democracies are lagging behind all over the world. We see in our own country, we are living in a democratic country, but we see there are growing disparities between rich and poor. There are growing economic inequalities among the people. So all these problems we face in a democracy, and we can have expectations from democracy that when we say that it is a good government, it should not lag behind in economic growth and development also. We will discuss the record of democracy in economic development. We will discuss that what are the other factors apart from being a democratic country, what are the other factors that are responsible for economic development, and how non-democratic countries are doing in this area. We will discuss it tomorrow with a great energy and enthusiasm. Till then, prepare your notes on these points, and it's a goodbye.